Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Habitual Linecrosser. And today, Knox, every time I start talking, you want to say hi? Oh, he's stepping on a tattoo. Oh, oh, that hurts. Oh, I love you to death, dude, but that hurts so bad. Oh my God. I got a very recent tattoo we'll go with top of my hip and leg. We're talking about one of those most little known air and missile defense systems. Well, actually just air defense systems in general. This thing couldn't shoot down missiles. We're talking about the Chaparral, the MIM-72 Chaparral. Now, to understand what this is and why it exists, we really have to go back into the history. See, before the MIM-72 Chaparral, there was something called the MIM-46 Mauler, which, can I go ahead and say, is probably the coolest name for any missile system that I've ever heard of in my entire life, and we should really bring back the Mauler. I'd never heard of this thing before I started doing my homework. Now, the Mauler is designed on a 113 chassis. It's got a couple of different radars on it, one for seeking, one for tracking, and it was a good idea, but it was a little ahead of its time. See, back then, the missiles that were on board the Mauler, they would need to have the target painted. The Mauler came right at the end of the Korean War, in the late 1950s. This is when jet aircraft really started to be on the battlefield a whole lot more often. So we realized that having machine guns wasn't going to bode as well for us, and we needed to start having things that were faster, which is missiles, because America, why the fuck not? So we came up with the MIM-46 Mauler. One of the radars would search, the other one would track the missile. Now these missiles, these interceptors back then, were what was referred to as... These missiles needed a continuous wave radar and fire control system. What that pretty much meant is during this time, we weren't very good at making different types of missiles. Track while scan was still not there yet. Heat seeking was just kind of coming around the bend. But these missiles, one radar would search and then it would find the target. The other radar would paint the target. The missiles would go up and they would intercept the target. And at least that's the way it was supposed to work. Unfortunately, the MIM-46 Mauler, it was an ambitious design, but it ran into very big problems as it would get returns off of all kinds of things like trees, and it wouldn't actually make these engagements, and it turned out to be not very effective. And in November 1965, they canceled the project, and they were like, well, we're just going to keep rocking with the M42 Duster, which I've done a video about previously, and the Quad 50. Now, right around this time, we still realized that we were behind the power curve, so we came up with something called FAD, Forward Area Air Defense Project. Now, I will tell you this, as an air defender, we still use FAD to this day. It is a real thing. Forward area air defense is something that you project forward so that way you're protecting everything that is behind it. Because a lot of these systems need to engage from behind, like some other people that I know. You know, there's no way to make that joke not sexual in any way. So the FAD was born. It was the Forward Area Air Defense Project. Now we use FAD C2, which is Forward Area Air Defense, Command and Control. There's a lot. FAD is still used to this day. So enter the MIM-72 Chaparral.
Chaparral, companion weapon to the Vulcan, seeks a flying target. The fast-moving drone is greatly slowed by the camera.
The United States government said, hey, we have these AIM-9 Sidewinders. Can we put them on the ground and have them shoot something in the air? That's a wonderful idea. Let's take these air-to-air missiles and stick them on the ground because these missiles work really, really good. Right. Well, the first problem they ran into is these missiles didn't necessarily fire as soon as they dropped off the bird. Sometimes they had up to like a 2-second ignition problem. And the first time they actually tried to fire the MIM-72 Chaparral, the missile dropped on the ground and then just proceeded to smash into a berm about 100 meters in front of the Chaparral. So they're like, well, we need to make this thing a little bit taller. Hence why the Chaparral has this ungodly tall turret on the back of it. It's also based off of a 113 chassis. The 113 has been used throughout the military for the last 60, 70 years. And we still use them to this day. So they made it a little bit taller. They changed some things in the warhead, and they made it fire as soon as the system got a target lock. Now, when the AIM-9 Sidewinder came out, it was used everywhere. It is one of the cheapest and most widely produced missiles that have ever existed anywhere in the world. It was so good that the Soviets decided to reverse engineer it, and they created the Soviet K-13 AA-2, the Atoll, fuck, I can't even remember, I don't know how to pronounce that. Look, the we don't know how to design our own shit, so we steal it from other people. We're going to just call it that. The AIM-9 has been used in a ton of different ways. Most of them are semi-active radar homing. Some of them also have, I've heard of thermal guidance. They have all these different things. But the ones that were attached to the Chaparral originally were thermal guided. Enter the purpose of the FAD. So what would happen is you had to put these Chaparral way out there in as close to enemy territory as you could, and as they would get overflight by enemy aircraft, they could easily lock onto their heat signature because they were thermal guided at that point in time. Eventually, they got updated with radar guidance, and they had radars get dragged along with them. One of the things that would carry the radar for them was called the, where's it at? I can't find the fucking name of it. Anyways, the radar that was drug around with this little thing was a little 6x6. It actually looked like a 4x4 that was dragging a trailer, but they had a drive shaft that went through all of it, so it was 6x6, and it had a cool little name. I can't find it. I don't know where the hell it went, but yeah, it was really interesting. So when they modified these missiles to be on board the Chaparral, they did a couple of small changes with them. Instead of having 4 big rollerons, is what they're called, they only had 2 fins on the back that had rollerons. And what a rolleron is it helps stabilize the missile in flight. They did this for weight purposes because you now have to make this thing a little bit faster because instead of being a short-range missile right behind it from air to air, you now have to catch up to it in the air, which makes it a whole lot more difficult to do. And then the other 2 fins were just regular thin fins without rollerons to reduce weight. Now, the Chaparral was a wonderful system. Unfortunately, it never really got its chance. Yes, it was used in a couple of different places, it was sent places, but it never really had a giant battle for it. But given the fact that it was lightweight, cost-effective, and it was very effective at protecting the skies because of the missiles associated with it, keep in mind, over 110,000 Sidewinder missiles have been produced by the United States and their allies. That is a lot of a single type of munition because they're lightweight, easy to utilize. But the Chaparral turret has been placed on freaking different platforms. It's been placed on different chassis. It's been placed on boats. The only thing they really haven't done with the exact turret itself is place it on aircraft. That's just because they take the missiles and slap them onto the sides of the aircraft. But these have been used by Chile, Ecuador, Egypt, Morocco, Taiwan, the Republic of China Marine Corps, Republic of China Navy, Tanzania. They've also been completely phased out of the United States military, Israel, and Portugal. Everybody used the Chaparral, but the Chaparral never really got its chance. Now, when you have something like the Chaparral, you realize that in its position, everything has to overflight it for it to be able to get its shots on, at least in the beginning before it got semi-active radar seekers. So this ran into a problem. You had different variants that had smokeless rocket motors on them. This made them able to get a couple of shots off before anybody knew where they were. That was able to keep them hidden. But they also co-located these things with the VADS, the Vulcan Air Defense System.
The Army's old reliable Gatling gun has been reincarnated, so to speak, by a modern weapon, the Vulcan.
Now, the Vulcan Air Defense System is an interesting system, to say the least. What they did is, originally, they had taken something semi-comparable to the GAU-8, right? It was large, very, very large. The GAU-8 is the 30mm. Actually, I have a GAU-8 over here. Hold on. Okay, so this is a shell from a GAU-8. Actually says Habitual Linecrosser on it. I got it from a friend of mine. So this is a 30mm shell. This is without the bullet. There's no bullet on the end. The problem they ran into with this is you could build a wonderful Gatling gun, but when you packed it completely full of ammunition with this, you had about a half a second burst, and then it took you 45 minutes to reload it. So they were like, we need smaller bullets, but I like the rate at which this thing goes. Enter the VADS, the Vulcan Air Defense System, now with a 20mm high explosive or depleted uranium shell. As you can see, there's a significant difference in size here. So you can now carry more of these bullets, you could link them together, and you could get them to function without causing additional damage to your equipment. So what they did is they took these smaller shells, they put it on top of another 113, and they created the Vulcan Air Defense System. Now, the Vulcan Air Defense System was to deal with short-range things that had no ability to be engaged by the Chaparral. So they co-located these systems with each other, which was really cool to do. It's actually, at least in my opinion, the first example of layered air defense, with the exception of things like the Ludendorff Bridge in the Battle of Remagen, where they had like the 3-inch guns, the Bofors, which, by the way, the Bofors is one of the most widely used guns ever, the 40mm Bofors, and then they had the Quad 50, the M2 Quad 50. They would co-locate these things with each other. What they found out pretty quickly is that the VADS, the Vulcan Air Defense System, is also good at pretty much everything that you want to point it at. It was very, very good at anti-personnel. It was good at, convoy security. It was great at point security. It was great at, anti-village, whatever the fuck you want to throw it at, okay? So these things existed. The Chaparral was widely used for a number of years. Unfortunately, it was phased out right at the beginning of the 1991 war in the Middle East. And it didn't really get its chance. It does have a couple of kills, I believe. Let me double check those things. I'll be honest with you, I cannot confirm anywhere that this thing ever had a ground-to-air kill. The Vulcan was used extensively. But keep in mind, the Vulcan and the Chaparral were both aimed manually. They had to be aimed manually because that would cut down on time. This is part of the process of FAD, Forward Area Air Defense. They had an interim version called IFAD, Interim Forward Area Air Defense, which is where the whole concept came from. When the Mauler failed, they brought out the Chaparral and the VADs, and they threw them way into the deep fight, and they said, hey, let's see what you got. And for the most part, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Unfortunately, they were born too late to fight in one war, and they were gone too early to fight in another one. But the Vulcan air defense system was used in several places like Panama. It was used in Iraq. It was used in... they had them for a short period of time in Kosovo. So keep that in mind as well. Overall, I think the Chaparral is a really cool system just because America decided to take air-to-air missiles and say, fuck you, we're going to put them on a tank. I don't like using that term very loosely because I used to be a tanker, and I know 113 is not a tank, and I'm going to piss off a lot of tankers in this comment section, but it's okay, nonetheless. Anyways, as always, do not give in to the 22 a day. Every single one of you are amazing, and I will see you guys right here next time. Play me out.